So far in this series, you've learned how to add supporting layers into GUPS and compare your shapefile to Census Bureau geography. You've also learned how to update linear features in your working area, adding, deleting, and changing the attributes of linear features and specifically roads. Linear features must be updated before changing and correcting boundaries. The Census Bureau requests all GUPS participants to review and update all legal entities and boundaries within its jurisdictions. In this video, we will demonstrate how to report boundary changes, the movement of boundaries to reflect addition or deletion of land, and how to report boundary corrections, the correction of incorrectly recorded boundaries. Boundary changes are legal and require official documentation. Because boundary corrections are technical errors, they do not require legal documentation. In GUPS, the types of boundary changes include new incorporations and new entities, disincorporations and deleted entities, additions and annexations, meaning partial areas legally added into entities, and deletions and de-annexations, meaning partial areas legally removed from entities. Boundary corrections are additions or removals of incorrectly recorded boundary lines which the Census Bureau have on record. In GUPS, all boundary changes and boundary corrections are completed using the Modify Area Feature tool in the BAS toolbar. Select the Modify Area Feature tool. Drag the tool to dock it in the table of contents to allow more working room in the map view. In the Modify Area Feature tool, click the Geography drop-down menu and select the entity type for which you want to add or remove area. You can update area features, consolidated cities, counties, minor civil divisions, or places. In this example, we are choosing Place to update a city. A list of available entities populates in the Modify Area Feature tool. Select the name of the specific entity you would like to update. The selected entity appears in the map view. Use the Zoom tool to zoom into a location of the map to start looking for areas which require boundary changes and boundary corrections. The thick yellow line represents the boundary of the geographic place, in this case Tampa City, as designated on the Census Bureau shapefile. It indicates that the area to the left of the yellow boundary is within the jurisdiction. And conversely, all the area to the right of the yellow boundary is an adjacent jurisdiction outside of the place. But according to your up-to-date shapefile, the light green area outside of the yellow census boundary represents area which needs to be added to the Census Bureau's records. This will be an example of a boundary change, and specifically an annexation. When making any boundary changes, faces, meaning polygons, are selected to add to or remove from an area. If the current faces do not represent the area you wish to change, create new faces by adding a new linear feature. As demonstrated previously in this training series, select the Add Linear Feature tool to create a new linear feature. When making a new linear feature, use existing edges to form part of the boundary. In this example, there is the yellow Census Bureau boundary and the vertical road on the right. Starting from the road, add new edges along the boundary of the user-provided map. End the new edges at the other end of the road to complete the new linear feature. Select the feature type Non-Visible Legal or Statistical Boundary in the Add Linear Feature dialog box and click OK. The new linear feature has been created. The edges of the new faces are the Census Bureau boundary, the new linear feature, and parts of the vertical road, an existing linear feature. In addition, the creek is also an existing linear feature, parts of which will act as edges of the new faces you will be selecting. For more information about adding, deleting, and changing the attributes of linear features, review the previous video in this series, GUPS 4, Updating Linear Features. Now that the new linear feature is created, use the Select Features tool, located in the Modify Area Feature tool, to select the newly created faces. Left-click a face to be added to the annexation. Once the face is selected, it will be highlighted in the map view. To select multiple faces, hold down the Control key on your keyboard while you left-click to select each face you wish to change. All selected faces will be highlighted. After selecting all the faces you wish to adjust, click the green plus sign Add button or red minus sign Remove button in the Modify Area Feature tool. The Modify Area Feature Choose Change Type dialog box opens. This example of an annexation is a legal change. We will later show an example of a boundary correction. For instructions regarding offsets and corridors, refer to the GUPS Respondent Guide. Select the radio button for legal change and click OK. The Create Change Polygon dialog box opens next. The fields in the top half of this box contain pre-populated information for your working area. In addition, for legal changes, you will need to enter an effective date, authorization type, document name, and a change type. Click the calendar icon next to the effective date field to open the calendar and select the effective date of the legal change. Authorization types include local law, ordinance, resolution, state-level action, and other. This annexation is a local law. For the document field, click the folder icon to open a browser window where you may upload supporting documentation. In lieu of uploading documentation, you may instead enter the name of the law that authorizes the legal change. The change type for this example is an annexation. If removing an area, there will be a de-annexation option. Click OK. If the map view zooms out to the full extent of the selected entity, a county or city for example, you can select the Zoom Last button to recover your previous zoomed-in view. You can also use the Zoom tool to zoom into your previous view. The legal change will change the color of the faces on the map, and they are added to or removed from the legal entity. Now we're going to conduct a few boundary corrections. In comparison to boundary changes, boundary corrections are smaller modifications to improve the spatial accuracy of boundaries. In other words, boundary corrections amend incorrectly recorded boundaries. Although the processes of making boundary corrections and boundary changes are similar, with a boundary correction, no legal documentation is required to be updated in BAS. To find an area which needs a boundary correction, zoom in to a section on the map where you can identify both the place boundary and area of the Census Bureau shapefile, and the boundary and area as marked on your imported map layer, and identify discrepancies, which show area to be removed from and area to be added to the Census Bureau database. Here, the Census Bureau boundary indicates that there is more area than the local map indicates. This area will need to be removed from the Census Bureau's records. To isolate the area that does not exist on the local map and thus indicate where to make the boundary correction, we again need to create new faces or polygons. As with making a boundary change, making new faces consists of combining existing linear features, such as roads and Census Bureau boundary lines, with new boundary lines you create, also known as non-visible linear features. To create new linear features that accurately represent the entity, select the Add Linear Feature tool in the BAS toolbar. Start the first non-visible linear feature at one end of the area to be corrected. In this example, the yellow Census Bureau boundary, which is also an existing linear feature. Continue the new linear feature along your user-provided boundary until ending at the next existing linear feature, a portion of a road. The Add Linear Feature dialog box opens. Select Non-Visible Legal or Statistical Boundary and click OK. This existing linear feature, a small portion of a road, can be used in conjunction with the new non-visible linear features being drawn to create new faces. A new linear feature does not need to be added here. Starting at the end of the road portion and continuing along the user-provided map border, add the final non-visible linear feature until terminating at the yellow Census Bureau boundary. Again, select Non-Visible Legal or Statistical Boundary and click OK. New faces have been created, bordered in part by the Census Bureau boundary, the existing road portion, and the new linear features. In addition, a portion of a vertical road inside this area also serves as an edge to the new faces. Part of the body of water, bisected by a new linear feature, is another face. The next area, which needs a boundary correction, reflects where the Census Bureau boundary indicates there is less area than indicated on the user-provided map layer. This area will need to be added to the Census Bureau's records. As with the previous boundary correction, start the new non-visible linear feature at an existing linear feature, again the yellow Census Bureau boundary, and end it at another existing linear feature, the horizontal road. Select Non-Visible Legal or Statistical Boundary in the Add Linear Feature dialog box and click OK. More new faces have been created, bordered by the existing Census Bureau boundary, the horizontal road portion, and the new linear feature. The creek also forms boundaries for the new faces. Now that all the new faces have been created, they can be used to make boundary corrections. First, we will select the newly created faces which are to be added to the entity. In the Modify Area Feature tool, click the yellow Select Features by Area button. Left-click, and holding down the Control key, continue clicking to select all the additional faces to be added. In this case, there are only 2. In the Modify Area Feature tool, click the green Add Area button to add the faces to the entity. The Modify Area Feature Choose Change Type dialog box opens. Select Boundary Correction as the change type and click OK. The faces on the map turn a different color to indicate they are added, in this example, to the entity. Now we will select the other newly created faces, this time to remove from the entity. In the Modify Area Feature tool, click the yellow Select Features by Area button. Left-click, and holding down the Control key, continue left-clicking to select all the additional faces to be removed. You may also need to zoom in further to find smaller, harder-to-see faces for selection. Select the Zoom Last button to recover your previous zoomed-in view. In the Modify Area Feature tool, click the red Remove Area button to remove the faces from the entity. The Modify Area Feature Choose Change Type dialog box opens. Select Boundary Correction as the change type and click OK. The faces on the map turn a different color to indicate they are removed, in this example, from the entity. Again, as opposed to a boundary change, with a boundary correction, the boundary is changed on the map layer in GUPS to reflect the spatial accuracy of the area, and the new boundary information is reported to the Census Bureau. Additionally, as demonstrated in the previous video when working with linear features, we also recommend turning on Imagery when conducting boundary changes and boundary corrections in GUPS. Imagery can serve as a reference to help you better see roads and other features and draw updated boundaries in the correct locations. We will demonstrate using Imagery with boundaries in the next and final section of this video. So far in this training video, we have demonstrated how to use existing linear features, such as boundaries, roads, and creeks, in conjunction with the creation of new linear features to create new faces for making boundary changes and boundary corrections. One final concept to keep in mind regarding all boundary changes and boundary corrections in GUPS is that spatial relationships between boundaries and roads need to be preserved in order to accurately count people in the right place. Addresses fall on either side of a road's street center line. On Census Bureau maps, a road is drawn as one line which aligns with the street center line. When the boundary of your local map follows a right-of-way, the boundary reported in GUPS cannot fall anywhere short of the Census Bureau road. Instead of drawing any new linear features as defined by your local map layer, the Census Bureau road will need to be used as the boundary in order for addresses to be reported in the correct jurisdiction and people to be counted in the right place. To illustrate this concept, we will first zoom back into the map with only the Census Bureau map layer visible. Here, the Census Bureau boundary is highlighted in yellow, and the place area is to the right of the boundary. When we turn on your local map layer, we can see there is more area in your jurisdiction than the Census Bureau has on record. And in this example, the boundary of your local map layer follows the right-of-way. As just mentioned, addresses are tied to the Census Bureau defined road and fall specifically on either side of the street center line. In order to count people in the correct places, the Census Bureau road needs to be used as the boundary when reporting in GUPS. To better illustrate this concept on the map and see satellite imagery of houses in proximity to roads and boundaries, select the Imagery button on the BAS toolbar to turn on Imagery. Please note, no real addresses or Title 13 data are being used in this demo. As you can see, the boundary of the local layer runs between roads and houses in several locations. As the address for each house is tied to the road needs to be used as the boundary in the BAS update. Using the road as the Census Bureau boundary will ensure that houses along the road are counted within their correct jurisdictions, so that the population count will be accurate. To update the map and remedy this issue, we will conduct a boundary change. As before, open the Modify Area Feature tool, dock the tool in the Table of Contents. Under the Geography drop-down menu, select Place and your working area, and select the faces, which in this case extend to the Census Bureau road boundary. Select the green plus sign Add Area button. The Modify Area Feature dialog box opens. Select Legal Change and click OK. The Create Change Polygons dialog box opens. Select all the appropriate selections as you did before. Turn off the local layer to see the annexed area from your local map added to the Census Bureau layer. The new boundary extends all the way to the road. All the houses along the boundary whose addresses are tied to the road will be counted in their correct jurisdiction. Please note, when the boundary of your local layer is in close proximity to a linear feature, such as a road, Census Bureau policy requires the use of the linear feature as a boundary, especially when houses are present. For more information about using roads as boundaries when making boundary changes and boundary corrections, please see the BAS topology video. In the next video, we will demonstrate how to identify and review your change polygons created in GUPS and find and correct any errors. If you have any questions regarding boundary changes and boundary corrections, please review the GUPS Respondent Guide.